Just do my BT magic. I cannot believe we're at episode 5 already, correct? We're at episode 5? Oh my goodness. Fabricio rocked our world here at the studio. I'm not even gonna give it away, but we transformed the set for him and he's incredible. What he wants to do for the dance community, our paths are very similar and I hope you enjoyed as much as I did.
My name is Fabricio Seraphin, and this is my poetic truth.
All right.
All right.
Who is Fabricio?
Oh, God. Who is Fabricio? Curious. I'm very, very curious about everything, from physics to science to history to art to music, obviously to dance. And I love knowing as much as I can about as many things. So I'm always curious about that. So curious is who I am.
So any major struggle that you have experienced growing up here in the US?
Yes. Being a Haitian gay person of color in America, you kind of aren't really a part of any world because you're, too white for too different, or too, I guess in my case, as I was growing up in the arts, too white for the black folks, and then too black for the white folks, and then too American for the Haitians, and too gay for both the blacks and the Haitians. So I've always been sort of outside in my whole growing up, just because I was in the closet for so long. And when I came out, it didn't really end up very well. My family was very, very religious. So I'm kind of now here on my own, but my whole life though, it was always sort of hiding some layer of myself to the people in my life. And now I'm kind of like free and I can, I'm living my best life now. So, but yeah, that was kind of like one of the struggles is just being this person. That I still deal with it to this day, but I'm much more used to it now.
Awesome. So define freedom. You just mentioned free. Define freedom.
Freedom to me is the ability to express yourself in any which way you choose and sort of navigate through life without having to censor yourself, without having to think about what you're doing and how you're doing it and anything like that. And also, having sort of an understanding of the world and having the access and the ability to have further understandings of yourself and the world, and just I think that's freedom, is sort of giving you the access and the ability to learn and be wherever and whoever you want to be. So, yes.
So nowadays, there's a lot of social unrest. As
Yes.
a person of color, as considered to be as a black man in this country, how do you see yourself in the midst of all that chaos?
I guess this is sort of where I'm sort of fortunate. I come from a country where it's run by Black people. And so when I came to America, I had a pretty good knowledge of who I am as a Black person in the world. And so I remember one of the first times I was told, go back to Africa, I was like, I'm not from Africa, I'm from Haiti. And also Africa is a continent and there are multiple countries in Africa. So I don't know what you mean by that. And I feel like for a lot of Black people in America, they can't say that. And so that's where that hurts for them. And for me, it doesn't hurt me as much as it would hurt someone who is from this country. And that's also part of the whole outside in thing. I've never had to deal with sort of generational sort of racism that has passed down from not just from everything that's been going on in this country. I've kind of come into it and sort of been born into it. So yeah, I don't. It's it's different, I think, for me, and sort of seeing myself. I've always in terms of blackness, I've never really, sort of struggled with that. Um, but it really wasn't until I moved to America when I was young, when you kind of live in it, and then I moved out of America into Europe, and I lived in London, and sort of seeing the contrast between America and London and sort of race relations in those countries, and learning about, I took critical race theory when I was in London, and sort of seeing the difference between what it's like to be a black man in America versus a black man in Haiti versus a black man in the UK or Europe. It's very, very different. And I really think that America definitely has a very, its own version of, I don't know. There's just something about, for me personally, there's something that's always off. I remember one of the first times when I was traveling on the train when I was in London at the Tube, the police officers had gotten on the train and I didn't feel as threatened as I would have had it been in America. I don't know if it's just because it's foreign and new and whatever, but my whole experience there was different. I remember walking into a designer store. I like to go designer, and having a woman come up to me and ask me, "Is everything okay?" And I'm like, "No, it's fine. I'm just searching." And she just walked away without any hesitation, and I didn't feel like there was an extra pause. Usually, sometimes when you go to some of these places, even in New York, actually, there's always a little pause, and then sometimes it's a second look. And there, it's just, okay. And then they're on with their day, they're on with their life, and it's not really a thing. So I think it changes from where you go, depending on where you're going. But at least myself, I felt like I've always had a good sense of myself in terms of who I am as a black person. And also I love being dark skinned and black. So great colors work, all colors work on me. So I don't even know. So.
Pause for a second. Okay, go ahead. So I want to segue about your purpose.
My purpose?
What is your purpose in life right now, Fabricio?
Right now, this is the first time in my life that I've had to expand my knowledge on everything else. I've been dancing since I was 7. I got started with ballroom dancing, and I used to take classes pretty competitively, and I used to compete with my sister until I was around 12 or 13, and then I got into theater. And then from there, I went to art school, and I double majored in musical theater and dance, and I worked for a circus in my high school experience, and I was the first person in my family to go to college, so it was a big deal. So I did the full thing for university, and I was on scholarship. So I had to have a specific amount of things that I had to take. So from 7 on, I never really had time to really look into all these other things. I've always been interested in science and physics and history. I love like quantum mechanics and like all these sort of this infinitely small and infinitely large general relativity and all that. And it's always been sort of put in the back burner. As I was growing up, just because dance is such a taxing thing, and it takes up a lot of your time because you're taking classes and then you're training and then you're working, you're performing. And I was doing it for school, outside of school, and then as a job at one point in my life. Also, I was raised in a way that when I was growing up, we didn't have like television or anything like that. My mother was very old school, and so she was very much study, very immigrant mentality of like, try to be a doctor or a lawyer or something like that. So she was very heavily focused on us studying and keeping on track with our academia. And that's so I kind of, as a way of defiance, I kind of geared towards the arts and sort of left sort of the academic world, not behind, but kind of put it on the shelf just to continue dance. So this pandemic has really given me time to delve into history and delve into science and delve into music. And I got a piano and like I got a telescope, and I've been looking up at the stars, literally like really delving in, not only reading and watching, but going out and seeing. I would watch history pieces and then go to the history museum and actually see some of the things that I had researched and that I'd like I said, I'm very curious. I love to know things, but not only know things, but I love to know how they work, and all the way down to the atomic scale. Literally, I love that kind of thing. So it's definitely giving me time to sort of be as my inner nerd, let my childhood run free and learn as many things as I possibly can before I don't have the time anymore. So that's kind of what I've been doing now, at least. That's my purpose is to just learn as many things as I can, so that when I'm older and there's more, it just makes life much more when like I remember seeing the sunset, and now you're knowing what's going on, understanding how something like electricity works, and now it's just fascinating. It makes just this thing as this light makes it all the more interesting, just because I know what's going on. I know there's an electron. There's so many. I think that makes it more beautiful. It makes everything more beautiful, and like makes you much more present in the moment, because not only are you seeing what's going on, but you're sort of understanding all the things behind the things that are going on. And that's what I love.
So I can see that like your purpose is actually the academic world right now. Are you planning to pursue that like fully eventually when you get to new normal, or you're going to go back to dancing?
I've been very much back and forth, but I've kind of sort of decided on. I want to keep dancing. I'm young, so I only have so much time left with my body. So I think that's going to be the thing that I want to keep doing. Granted, I don't really know what's going to happen with our world as we come back from the pandemic and sort of get back into the routine of things, and that's a little uncertain, and that's kind of a little scary. But I've always it has come up that maybe possibly transitioning out of dance into something more academic has come up in my sort of goings-on in my head. But I think right now I'm going to stick with the dance thing, and then keep it on the back burner. But I have like I found like a middle point in terms of like I decided that I want to create a documentary, and I get to focus on the history, because it's a documentary based on cultural and indigenous dances and sort of the underground dances of all these different countries. And I want to try and go to each country and learn from these people, learn from the culture, and have that enriching. Like I said, I love learning as many things as I can, and if I can, now I get to do history, and I get to do dance, and I get to try something, and I get to meet people. It's sort of in the works. There's been talks here and there. I've got a couple of big names behind the idea, but it's sort of getting it all together, and then money. Money is a problem, and getting everything set up for that. But that's kind of something that I've always been passionate about, and hearing about people like Alvin Ailey and how he went to India and how it changed the way that he danced. Same thing with all these jazz people. That's how we got musical theater. That's how we got modern dances, because they went out and they saw things. I want to give a voice to the people that they saw. I want to give a voice to the Indian gypsy groups. I want to give a voice to the Haka groups in New Zealand. I want to give a voice to the cumbia dancers in Mexico. And I want everything to have a voice. And I want everybody in the world to be able to access that as well. So I get the education part as well. That's where the education. I love education. I want to bring, you can do both dance and education. And I want to try and give everybody that opportunity, and also give these dances, especially some of the older cultural dances, give them a place where they can live on forever and not die off with the 10 groups of girls that they have left over from thousands of years old, as we begin to modernize. So that's, yes. I don't know what the question was. But
Actually, I have a final question.
I have one more.
Okay, I just want to make sure I didn't forget mine. Because the last time we were talking about this when you were here,
mm-hmm.
and I'm old school, I'm the old generation, so the whole binary system, like the whole thing is so new to me, and I'm learning more about it. And I know, like you were saying, you embraced, like you were, when I saw you last time when we were walking,
Mm-hmm.
you were the way you were dressed with that hat. I was like, oh my God, I just wish I feel all the things that you're wearing. But it's just I'm so in the shame, like that, I'm gonna be a man kind of thing.
Yes.
And I live in New York.
Yes.
That's why I still go to Michigan. So I'm just curious where you're at with that, how you feel about that, and what advice
About
you
my sexuality and femininity.
what advice you give to someone like me that you know what I mean? That's from the old shame generation of you have to do this way.
Well, I come from that same generation too.
I'm 25 years older than you.
Yeah, but once again, Haiti is very backwards.
That's true. Okay, so yeah, I'm just curious how you can inspire.
My sexuality is something that I've always had to fight with. I remember I was very religious growing up. Me, myself, not only was my family and my culture very conservative and religious, my family is also Catholic on top of being Haitian. But I actually was very religious. I read the Bible quite often, and I kind of I wanted to be a pastor at one point. And as I began to understand myself and understand how I felt a lot of shame. I remember I used to pray to make the gay go away, and I got to really bad to a point where I was very suicidal, and I think really coming into terms with my sexuality happened when I was in Europe. I was very fortunate like I said, I worked for the circus and I had all this money. They paid me very well, so I had money saved up. So when I moved to Europe, I studied at the Globe Theater, and I was able to pay for the program, but I was also able to have money left over because I was on a full ride for college as long as I maintained a specific course load. So I had this money left over, and my full ride paid for my schooling and my food and my books, and it paid for everything, basically. But so I had this money left over from the circus, and I just sat on it. And then when I went to Europe, I kind of gave myself the freedom to travel and do as many things as I can. And I did most of the traveling on my own, just to see if I could do it. And sort of being alone in some of these countries where I don't even speak the language, you learn to sort of be who you are in a way that you just can't when you're in a country where you speak the same language, because you learn to use your body, you learn to move your body in a specific way, and you learn to tell people who you are non-vocally. And as I've sort of as I sort of have had dealings with the gay community in a lot of these places, I kind of became more and more settled, more and more comfortable. There's definitely a stigma in the gay world towards Black people and towards minorities. And I definitely got the brunt of that when I was in Illinois. And so that was one thing that I did sort of feel uncomfortable with in terms of my Blackness, is that I felt like I was never going to be accepted by my gay peers because I was seen as attractive, conventionally American attractive to them. And so when I went over, I wasn't seen as, I didn't feel like a fetish. I didn't feel like anything. I just felt like a person. And that was one of the first times where my sexuality and my humanness were treated as one thing and not two things, and not two separate things. And obviously, yes, there's fetishization in everywhere. But it definitely isn't as colored as it is through the lens of American racism versus the rest of the world. And I became more and more comfortable with myself and became more and more comfortable with how I move and how I act. And I stopped thinking about what I did, because that's how I was conveying myself to other people. I thought about it, and then eventually it just became a natural thing of just like, this is who I am, da da da. And then I moved here, and I got a job working for the show that I was previously in. And it was a contemporary ballet variety show, and they wanted me in heels, and they wanted me in corsets, and sort of, I was thrown into this world where my sexuality varied. I could be whatever I wanted to be, and I could wear whatever I wanted to wear, and I was being paid for it, really. And it was part of the show, and as I started meeting people and talking to people and sort of seeing the people coming in and out and having interactions with other people, I became more and more comfortable with the feminine side of myself. I began to just wear whatever I wanted to wear because I thought it was cute. And I just decided that why don't I shop at first it was for costumes to shop in the women's section. And eventually I was like, I can wear this on the daytime too. I don't know why I never thought to do it. And then, there was a safe space where I could do it because the venue that I worked at turned into a nightclub. After the show was done, they removed the stage and removed the chairs and tables and they turned it into a nightclub. So I could kind of experiment safely in a safe place where I could, wear whatever I wanted to wear and kind of gauge the reaction of it's a relatively straight nightclub, but it's very higher end. So it's very different from like going to just a regular straight club. But you kind of talk to other people and eventually you realize that no one's really looking at what you're wearing. They're really looking at who you are. And you it starts off that way because you don't really know each other. But as you get to know people, you realize that everybody's just trying their best and everybody's just trying to be themselves. And I think that's what we should really be focusing on is what you're presenting the truest you that you think that it can be. And when you go to bed at the end of the day, are you happy with who you presented yourself to be? And if you are, then you're doing it. And if you're not hurting anybody else, then it doesn't matter what you're doing. That's how I see it. That's how I kind of present myself in the world. If I go home at the end of the day and I did what I wanted to do and I acted how I wanted to act and did what I needed to do and I felt good about what I did and who I was and how I did the things that I did. And obviously we have days where we regret things that we've done. But if I was like, that was a good day. I think for me, that's all that really matters because I'm going to be the last person that I'm with in my deathbed. And I don't want to be dying and to regret anything that I've done.
I have one more. So imagine yourself, you are looking at your 6-year-old self right now.
Oh no.
All right, Barbara.
No.
What are you going to tell that 6-year-old Fabricio right now? Looking at the camera.
I can't.
Or advice. Any advice to your 6-year-old self?
It's going to be okay. That's really the thing that I think. I've always stressed out about what other people thought about me. And I was so scared of myself and of what I could be and what I could do. And looking back, I don't know if I would be who I am had I not gone through the things that I've gone through. And so that's why I say it's going to be okay. It may not be okay now, but you're going to persevere. You're going to make it, and you're going to do incredible things. You're going to travel the world. You're going to do things that you never thought that you could do. And I'm only 25, so there's only so much more to go. So it's going to be okay, and you're gonna learn to love yourself.
I know, right? Incredible. Mind blown, Fabricio. Incredible. Thank you so much for watching, listening, wherever you're tuning in. Next week, you're not going to want to miss. We have Caged Jock, an Asian male porn star, blesses my studios. I'm not going to say anything more, but it's pretty spicy.
In the back of my mind, I knew that in porn, a lot has already existed. So I wanted to contribute something different. Yes, chastity has been done a lot, but I give it my own interpretation with a fresh perspective, and that's why people love it.
If you like the video and you want to see more, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching. Right there. Subscribe. I can't do that with my leg. Oh, can't do that anymore.